Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video will be of me working in my sketchbook. The sketch here that I did is of my original character. It's a fairly new original character, and this is maybe the fourth drawing I did of him, and probably was my favorite, and that's why I decided to record it. I don't think I recorded the other one of the full painting that I might have posted of him also sitting in a chair. It's just I wasn't entirely a fan of the way his face turned out. I still enjoyed it and it was a lot of fun, but in this case I kind of wanted to try again and I guess make it a little more spicy. I think it was also overall a good exercise just for drawing some anatomy and chest anatomy, though that was kind of like more of the excuse rather than trying to draw something spicy. Sometimes it all just works out. Also, this is probably like the fourth drawing I did of him, and the fourth drawing he is holding a martini glass. I just keep drawing him with a martini glass. I don't know why. I think it's just also a little bit of practice of like just drawing somebody holding a glass in their hand as well. I just enjoyed doing that, drawing it in different angles, so that's kind of how it turns out. Does anybody else have that where they feel like they just keep drawing the same thing in a million different angles just because it just feels satisfying? So I just decided to go with a regular fine liner. I also decided to include kind of like a dragon for him, even though I kind of was thinking him as more snake themed character. I thought I just wanted to draw a dragon. I thought that would just be way more satisfying for myself. But also, it's a dragon. It's a lot cooler than a snake, if we're being honest. I know snakes are real, but dragons are cooler whether they're real or not. So that was just my reasoning, honestly. Although it was a slight pain to after sketching every single scale, then ink every single scale, but it was also kind of therapeutic just going through it. And because I did sketch the whole pattern in advance before, it was easier to ink than normally when I just kind of wing it with the ink after the fact. Also, I feel like I nailed the perspective of the chair. This pose is 90% of a pose from Pose Maniac site, but I think I changed the arm that's holding the glass and maybe a little bit of the angle of the head or something. So if you are struggling with figuring out what pose to do for your characters, Pose Maniacs is a great site, by the way. Lots of like free refs where you can kind of just like look at different 3D models and like spin them around or something. Lately I just keep using it because sometimes I struggle with like coming up with a original pose of my own, and sometimes I'll just like, does anybody else have this where they end up drawing their character in the same exact pose over and over again? And it like sometimes I'll check back and I'm like, crap, I have like 4 other characters that just posed like this, so it's kind of nice to mix it up, and you know, you don't always have to even do the exact one. It kind of gives great inspiration as well. Also, apologies if my voice sounds like crap. I still feel like I sound like I have a cold, even though it's just the AC and my sinuses deciding to act up right when I'm trying to do voice recording. So I haven't done bold black shadows in a while, since I haven't done particularly like the comic book style in ages. And once again, I was back to being kind of very scared of making bold moves. So it didn't really, I suppose the shadows themselves, all of them didn't turn out as dark as I want to. I probably could have gone way further, but I still ended up adding more shadows later on. So here I'm getting a little bit finicky of, you know, trying to push it here and there. Does anybody else do this when they're like scared of doing the whole like solid more black spaces and they just chicken out, so they kind of do the like half-assed little by little where they're just increasing the thickness of the lines essentially? So what I decided would make my much braver is actually inking the entire background black. Using black ink and a brush is just very satisfying, and coloring in entire spaces. I don't know why, but I just love it. It just feels so nice. Maybe it's the contrast or something. Also, because it's supposed to be a solid black space, I was glad I didn't have to worry like watercolors, where when you are filling in spaces like this, you not only have to worry about the edges around if you haven't done masking fluid, but then you also have to make sure like it has a smooth coverage, and it's a game against time and everything. We think it's not perfect. I'm not sure if it comes up. It does get like almost this kind of patchiness, but like a cool kind of patchiness, with traditional art. It looks nice. It's not like watercolor patchy where you kind of want to cringe. But there's this one, I can't remember which artist I did see. It's a comic book artist where he does traditional art, and usually with working with inks in clearly a lot of brushwork. And it always kind of there's got like these patchy parts or something of the black part, the quotation, solid black parts. And I always enjoy that just because it kind of gives that very traditional touch, kind of feel like definitely some human hands have touched this sort of thing and painted this. In our, right now, in the age of AI feeling like it's taking over our jobs, it's kind of very satisfying. Just to have that very tactile look and the textured look. A side note also, I hope the footage is better for this video, as I followed the advice of a friend of just using manual focus. Not sure if I mentioned that before. So because it's a little bit hard to tell on a tiny screen, I think most of the footage was like sharp, but there was like a few where it looks like it turned out a little blurry. I suppose a little blurry is a lot better than what was happening with the free run recordings. The focus in that one would just keep going in and out of focus, essentially, which was really bad because the consistency of it was just like, it felt like it was, when you speed it up, like it was happening every millisecond or something, which was unwatchable. I suppose I really just need to carve out some more time in getting to know my camera better. It's just one of those things that I keep putting off, and forgetting about, when I really should learn about it for my own benefit, considering I do use it. Does anybody else have that one skill that they seriously should be upgrading, considering they use the thing, but they can't be bothered to get to it, or it keeps getting sidelined by so many other things in their life? So here I switched to mostly continuing on inking with a fine liner brush, just to get more variety in my line weight. Because this was a little bit of a spur of the moment sketch, I didn't really think about it too much when I was doing all this, and it kind of, the composition was coming into mind like after I started drawing the pose, and then I decided, oh, he could be sitting in that same chair, and it could be like that same OC, and then that's kind of how it came about. So the only thing that I didn't really quite plan, I suppose, is the shadows exactly. There was a moment where I thought maybe I would do the shading in pencils and have the shadows as gray, because I did see a couple of drawings with like some mixed media gray tone kind of shading, and I thought, okay, well, I don't have to go too nuts. Why don't I just meet in the middle and do some gray shadows instead. Also, the sun decided to randomly come out after it constantly being cloudy the entire time I was working, so always love that when it happens. It's just unexpected, so it's really hard to just stop and constantly fix the ISO of the camera, so apologies for that. I also hate shutting the curtains just because then the airflow gets really cut off and the room gets super stuffy, so it's like one of those things where, oh, it would be really good if I had an entire studio that with very functional lights and everything like that on occasion, but oh well. Yeah, more sun-blasted artworks. Extra contrast. But yeah, the happy medium of gray shadows when you can see them when the sun isn't interfering, I felt like was a good compromise for myself and my fear of completely screwing it up with having too much black in the artwork itself. A tip is, if you are afraid of ruining your sketch, you could, what I usually do is I usually just photograph or scan the sketch itself, and then I have that original, and sometimes I will even just refine it digitally and then transfer it like I do for most of my final pieces. So definitely do that. Don't feel like you have to completely ruin a sketch or completely finish it also in your sketchbook itself. I never like to do too much of a practice of the same exact thing I'm gonna paint later, because then it's always the struggle of you probably end up doing the sketch version better. Sometimes the funkiness of the sketch turns out better than another pass or something at it, and it's so weird. It's hard to make exact copies of your own artwork, even if your own hands do it right. So I'm going over the scales since I felt like they were looking a bit flat and I wanted to have more detail on them as well, and didn't really want any lines to just really fall too flat and still stand out quite a bit. Because like that's a great thing about sometimes just doing the background color first, and I think I've heard other artists do and say this, where it just really helps you then up the contrast right away. And I find that's very true, because I remember working on a couple of watercolor paintings. I'd paint the entire character and then I decided to color in the background, and then the character looked so pale, and it's rough when you've already done several layers of watercolor. And I'm not sure if it was even cotton paper, so it was probably like a cellulose paper, and then it kind of sucks when you have to douse more more layers. It turned into a mixed media thing because I think I ended up using pencil crayon and stuff to really up the contrast. So always like experiment in your sketchbooks and see what technique kind of is best if you are going to go with a dark background. For the dragon, I always kind of had an idea that I would color it in some color, and I assumed I was going to do just gold, but then at the last moment I thought maybe it would be kind of cooler if it was a greenish gold dragon, so I mixed in some green into the sparkly gold. Liquitex acrylic ink, I find the texture of it is a bit weird. And this is compared to the other inks in the same line. I understand because it's sparkly, the binder is going to probably be different than just a regular type of pigment ink. But this was more me experimenting, seeing if I could just get like more of a green sparkly effect if I mixed in some green pigment. The gold effect kind of still remains to be gold, and then the green kind of, especially when you're looking at it straight on, kind of just like is there. And I'm not entirely a fan of this. What I would have done instead if I redid it was have a green wash first, like no mixed in gold, and that would have been much cleaner, like solid wash of green, and then go over maybe with a just gold or some kind of mixed thing. I don't happen to have any other color of iridescent paints, so that's kind of why I was like mixing it in the first place. But just know the top-down view is probably the worst view, and it's so funny, the robe actually looks a lot better than the dragon itself. And finally complete. Like I said, at an angle the green gold starts looking much better than it did straight down. But yeah, if you've gotten this far in the video, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.